If there's one thing Google continues to excel at, it's software. But at what point is there so much software within a camera that it no longer is a camera, and instead, it's just a computer? I'm Becca. I'm that person that takes 1,000 photos with the device to see how it really performs when, you take it outside. And for the last week, it has been me and Google's latest $1,200 flagship device, the Pixel 10 Pro XL. Okay, so I've been trying to figure out why the 100x super zoom thing exists, and I think I've got it. This little guy lives across the street from me, and I'm gonna get a banging photo. By far, the most fun and impressive new feature in this phone is ProRes Zoom. The Pixel 10 has a 48 megapixel f2.8 5x telephoto lens. It's sharp, usually quick enough in good light, but new this year is the largest generative AI imaging model ever used on a Pixel device to provide what the company calls ProRes Zoom, a feature that is exclusive to the Pro models. Once you zoom past around 30x and snap a pic, the photo then gets processed to enhance details. Most of the time, leaves become sharper, textures become apparent, animals clearer, and text, well, in the photos you just saw, and the photos here, the left is a photo taken maybe 50 yards away and enhanced with ProRes Zoom, and the right is that same menu but taken with the main lens. AI-ified is how I would describe the photos from ProRes Zoom maybe 20% of the time. There are some guardrails with ProRes Zoom. For example, it doesn't work on faces, including statues, which I appreciate, but I found that if you don't include eyes, it will process the face, and do it, again, very AI-like. But if you keep it to buildings and trees and animals, 80% of the time, the results are truly impressive, which makes me want to keep using it. Also, anytime you use an AI feature, Google added this new metadata section. You swipe up on any photo, scroll down, and you'll see how this image was made. There, Google lists how the image was captured and if it was edited by AI tools such as ProRes Zoom. This information is also, of course, baked into the metadata of the photo, which I appreciate. Now, an AI feature that I don't so much appreciate is Camera Coach. It lives right up here in the native camera app. And first, you frame up your shot, then hit Camera Coach. And now using AI that you have to opt into, Camera Coach is analyzing the scene and figuring out what could make for a good photo. I don't have great internet, so this might take a minute. So it broke down the scene. I think I'll go red blooms and greenery. And now the phone is gonna walk me through how to get a great shot. Reframe to exclude the camera on the right. Done. Zoom in on the flowers. Okay. Move the camera to align with the light pole on the left. Reframe to include more flowers and less sky. Take the photo. Seems like an awful lot of work for a photo of a flower, but I could see it being helpful for somebody. Just not me. The good news is that Camera Coach can be completely ignored and never touched and doesn't take away from what otherwise is a great main camera.
Oh my God, that's my baby.
Nah, really, I've been loving the results I've been getting with this device. And I've never taken 1,000 photos so quickly. From better speakers on this device that make all of the sound effects, such as the shutter sound better, to the new animation down here that slides your photo into your gallery instead of doing this, to the general snappiness of the entire system. There's just very little friction in the UI, and it keeps me snapping away. And the results, yeah, they look like really good phone photos. What we've come to expect from our devices. These are from the 50 megapixel f1.68 main lens. Here are some shots with the 48 megapixel f1.7 ultra wide. And of course, the 5x 48 megapixel f2.8 tele, which has been by far my favorite to use. There's just nothing better than a super crisp shot of something that is a bit far away and therefore a little bit compressed and, I don't know, it's just a little bit different than what we see with our eyes. And I appreciate that. I'm drawn to it. But there is one more camera on this phone, and it's one that I'm not so fond of. It's the 42 megapixel selfie cam. It's not that the results are bad, it's just that the preview before all the processing happens is bad. I know I'm not alone in using the selfie camera to check out my appearance, and when I turn the camera on, it just doesn't look natural or like me. Okay, so I'm recording to the selfie cam right now, and it just is like my face is so smooth and evened out. And then when I take the photo, and I look at it, it looks completely different. My skin tone feels off. and the shadows are super lifted, and it just doesn't instill confidence in the photo I'm about to get. Of course, once you take the photo, then the phone processes the photo and it gets better, but I'm less inclined to actually snap the photo unless I look good in the preview. Okay, when we get back from the break, we're gonna talk all about video. There's a link in my bio for the only app that I use for news. About a year ago, I realized that I live in a complete echo chamber online, that the algorithms feed me stories that it thinks that I want to read rather than what I probably should be reading. Enter Ground News. Ground News is an app and a website that combats media bias by providing folks like you and me with a comprehensive overview of how many different sources are covering the same story. Take, for example, the story about Musk's companies suing Apple and OpenAI. The ground summary breaks down the news, while the bias comparison tells me how the left, right, and center leading outlets are framing that story. I can then scroll down and read all of the headlines of the reports on this topic, or click into the stories to see how they're being reported. But the best feature of Ground News is by far the blind spot tab. It populates stories that are receiving disproportionate coverage from one side of the political spectrum, instead of just feeding me stories that it thinks I want to see. You can scan this QR code for 40% off the unlimited Vantage plan. Thank you, Ground News, for sponsoring this video and for all the work that you're doing. Now back to the show. Time for my favorite section of these videos, video. First, the good. Moving between lenses on a Pixel device used to mean big color changes and generally just jarring jumps in image quality. Historically, Google's solve was to process your video in the cloud and then bring it back down for you all perfected, but I never felt great about having to send my video somewhere in order to get great results. And I'm happy to report that at least in terms of lens switches, that has changed. Straight out of the device, your lens switches look a lot more like this. There are of course still small jumps in saturation or exposure, and that's when you sort of see the computer of this camera working very hard to make the most ideal image. But for the most part, moving between lenses has gotten a whole lot better. I've also been enjoying the clarity and stabilization across these lenses, even at night. Should I jump in? But I'll get into more of that in the comparison section. The thing that hasn't changed in the system is the camera's need to brighten faces. On the main lens now. Natural light. Artificial? Natural? Artificial? For the love of God, Google, just let a shadow be a shadow, especially if I've already started recording. The other issue I have is more with Google's marketing. They did this whole campaign with the Jonas Brothers, where they filmed a music video with them, and it just looked bad. I mean, nothing about this camera system is pro. In the native camera app, there's no log shooting abilities. You can't use an SSD. Hell, there's not even like manual controls really. And I just can't imagine anyone outside of Google, I guess, using this device as a pro camera on a set as big as a Jonas Brothers music video. That is, unless you are going for, the stock smartphone video look, which is exactly what footage from this camera has. Which is maybe a good segue to comparing it to a device that has for the most part backed up its claims about being pro. If you compare the Pixel 10 Pro to the iPhone 16 Pro, which is about to be replaced, you'll immediately notice that the lens switches on the iPhone, they're much smoother. And color and contrast-wise, the Pixel is almost always brighter, but sometimes at the cost of taking some real liberties with hue and saturation. Colors are just far more inconsistent, and seemingly just not as true to life. Alright, but let me know what you think down in the comments. I know this is a video about the camera, but it is important to talk about the hardware, especially with the addition of Qi 2, or what Google calls Pixel Snap, normies call MagSafe, and everyone else just knows as magnets. The ability to natively use the plethora of MagSafe accessories that exist in the world on a Pixel phone is huge. From the simple stuff like a puck in the car, to the slightly more niche like a tripod mount. It just feels plain good to not have to mess around with, like a sticker of magnets or third-party cases in order to get MagSafe abilities. Otherwise, the Pixel 10 Pro looks and feels a lot like a Pixel 9 Pro, with the only visual differences being a more pronounced G on the back and a larger camera pill, which is all fine by me. I love the look of last year's phone, and I love the look of this year's phone, and I found myself putting it in the most random places and filming B-roll of it just because it looks so damn pretty. Like, nobody's gonna put their phone behind barbed wire on a stone fence, but it did look good there, and I'll stand by that. Alright, but to wrap this up, I need to address all of the visual processing. While it has long been true that smartphone cameras are more computer than camera, it has never been more apparent to me than when I've been shooting with this device. From the selfie cam preview being completely different than the final results, to the ProRes zoom enhancing details that I can't see with my naked eye, Google even added this help me edit bar in the Photos editing tool where you can prompt edits to your photos via Gemini. Software is noticeably everywhere with this device. And I want to be clear, I don't think any of that is a bad thing. These tools are fun to use, they're helpful, and I hope that everybody has the ability to take great photos. But when you use this camera, it is increasingly feeling like you are using a computer. And I don't know about you, but I am pretty tired of using computers. I use them all day, every day, and when I use a camera, I want to feel like I'm in the moment and I am escaping this sort of internet world I increasingly feel stuck in. And that's my problem with this device. As much as Google has tried to kind of, make AI blend in, it is so obviously still there. I'm Becca. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'll see you there.